Welcome to From Manuscript to Ministry, created and produced by Elder William Moore, the podcast where faith meets the written word. Each week, your hosts David and Martha dive into powerful, self-published books by Christian authors who are boldly using their God-given voices to impact the kingdom. Whether you're an aspiring writer, a reader seeking spiritual growth, or a ministry leader in search of authentic resources, this is your space to be inspired, encouraged, and equipped. Let's explore today's featured book and uncover the life-changing message behind the manuscript.
Welcome to The Deep Dive, the place where we cut through the noise, grab some interesting sources, and really pull out the insights you need. Today, our mission is all about, well, the architecture of lasting influence. You know, the kind of legacy that really outlives the person who built it. The material we're digging into today, it comes from this reflection called Crowned with Honor, Her Children Rise. It actually analyzes chapter 13 of William Moore's book, Proverbs 31, empowering quotes for everyday motivation. So, our job here is to analyze how this source defines generational impact and specifically this idea of building a spiritual legacy.
Yeah, and it's fascinating stuff because it really sets the stakes high right away. It takes that, famous phrase from Proverbs, her children rise and call her blessed. And it says, okay, this is more than just nice words. The source treats it not just as poetry, but as a promise and even a prophetic picture of generational impact.
That jump from poetry to promise, that feels really significant. It suggests a kind of direct link, right, between actions today and results tomorrow. And we're not just talking about, like, keeping a tidy house or something. The source really pushes the idea of fostering spiritually grounded world changers. It's a whole different measure of success.
Exactly. It shifts the benchmark entirely. The goal isn't just, raising kids or leading mentees who behave well. It's about cultivating people who are actually equipped to make a difference, agents of change.
Right.
Which leads us nicely into looking at the identity of this legacy builder herself.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that because it almost feels like an antidote to that constant pressure to be visible, that hustle culture thing. So what is the scope of her influence, and why does the source say she doesn't need to sort of chase validation?
Well, the source is pretty direct here. It says a woman of wisdom and prayer doesn't need to chase applause. Why? Because her fruit speaks for her. And the insight there is, I think, really key. If your focus is on the quality results, the fruit, then the applause, well, it just doesn't matter as much. The evidence is in the lives of the people you've influenced. That integrity, that impact, that is the validation.
That makes sense. And it feels pretty universal whether you're, I don't know, a CEO or maybe a community volunteer. The results speak. But here's something I found really interesting and maybe a bit surprising. This legacy idea isn't just for biological parents.
No. Absolutely not. And that's such a vital point the source makes. This whole framework applies whether someone is a mother by birth, by calling, or by mentorship, which, immediately opens it up. It kind of democratizes the whole concept of legacy building.
Right. So it's not about the title.
Exactly. You don't need a specific job title or a family relationship to be this kind of influencer. The focus is completely on the role itself, the nurturing, the teaching, the leading with wisdom. So, yeah, it's relevant for teachers, mentors, bosses, coaches, anyone in that kind of guiding position.
It's about the function of leadership, not the formal label. Okay, so now we kind of get who this legacy builder is. Let's get into the how. The source doesn't just give us a nice idea. It actually lays out a structure. 3 specific pillars for building this generational strength. And this is where I think it gets really practical.
Yes, these pillars are crucial because they take it from, a high-level concept to something you can actually do day to day.
Okay, pillar 1, honor and sacrifice. The source puts this right at the start, saying honor begins in the secret place of sacrifice. That phrase, secret place, is powerful. But why sacrifice? Why is that the root of honor, not, say, skill or knowledge?
Well, I think the source is making a really deep point about integrity here. Sacrifice, especially when it's secret, when nobody's watching, you get 0 credit for it. That's like the ultimate test of your authenticity. Honor that's built on public wins. That can be shaky, conditional, but honor built on those hidden sacrifices, that's foundational. It's real.
So if I'm like giving up my time or comfort, maybe holding my tongue when it's hard and no one sees it, that's building some kind of moral foundation.
Precisely. Think about it in mentorship. That secret sacrifice could be the extra hours prepping, the quiet prayers for the person you're guiding, or maybe choosing the harder right over the easier wrong when nobody would even know. That invisible work, that's what keeps the visible leadership strong later on. The source seems to argue that the real bedrock of influence is that intentional, unseen, often unthanked effort.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a challenge to how we often operate today, documenting everything online. It sounds like the source is saying if you need the applause for the act itself, then you've kind of already got your reward, and the legacy part might suffer.
That's exactly the tension it highlights. It pushes for the honor to come from the impact, the fruit, not from self-promotion.
Okay. Moving to pillar 2, this is about the transmission words and wisdom. The source makes this really direct link. How your words today become their wisdom tomorrow. This feels like it goes way beyond just, saying nice things.
Oh, it does. It implies every single interaction is basically a teaching moment or daily communication. That's the curriculum for their future choices. We often treat conversations, pretty casually, but the source says, hang on, view your words as building blocks. So the wisdom isn't just some big speech once a year. It's modeled in how you handle arguments, how you talk about mistakes, how you express your values, just doing everyday stuff.
So if a leader constantly expresses fear or anxiety when things get tough,
then that becomes the wisdom their team or mentee draws on in a crisis.
yeah. But if they model resilience, maybe faith in the process,
then that becomes the foundation for tomorrow's courage.
Yeah.
Exactly. The source is really asking the legacy builder to, audit their own language. Are your words giving clear guidance, or are they sowing doubt? Are you modeling how to think or just giving orders? If you want these world changers, your words need to actually give them the tools, the wisdom to understand the world and act effectively. Consistency is key here, too. Inconsistent words, they just erode that future wisdom.
That requires a lot of intention. Which leads us right into the final pillar, number 3. This one focuses squarely on the spiritual commitment. The source uses this memorable grouping, the 3 Ps, being present, prayerful, and prophetic.
Right, and this feels like the engine driving the whole thing. Being present, that's about intentional focus. Putting down the phone, tuning out distractions, really engaging. Being prayerful speaks to that internal grounding, that connection to core beliefs, making sure your actions aren't just reactive, but rooted in principle.
Okay, present and prayerful seem pretty clear. But prophetic, that word might trip some people up, especially if they're thinking purely in, a business context. What does being prophetic actually mean here? Especially for setting a generational direction.
That's a good question. In this context, the source seems to use prophetic to mean casting vision and setting direction, but rooted in those core principles we just talked about. It's not about, predicting the future like some oracle. It's more about providing clarity on the moral and strategic path forward for those you're influencing. A prophetic leader, in this sense, sees the potential, that sort of world changer potential, in the person they're guiding, and then speaks encouragement, challenge, and direction towards that highest potential. It's aspirational.
Okay, so it's about seeing beyond just the immediate problems or tasks and helping people connect what they're doing now to a bigger future purpose. And if you're truly present and prayerful, that gives you the insight needed to be effectively prophetic to set that positive forward-looking direction.
Yes, you could say it's like strategic foresight, but combined with real spiritual depth. It means the leader isn't just bouncing off circumstances. They're actively trying to shape the environment of influence around the people they lead. And that takes that deep commitment, that internal discipline, because setting a bold vision often requires courage it often comes from that private, unseen effort.
That really ties the 3 pillars together nicely. The integrity from sacrifice, the guidance through words, and the vision from being present, prayerful, and prophetic. But, okay, let's be real. Trying to live this out sounds exhausting. How does the source encourage someone who's feeling just, swamped by the daily grind?
Right, and this is where the source shifts gears a bit, moving from the how-to into some really powerful affirmation. It recognizes that building this kind of legacy is hard work, and it's often thankless in the moment. So it offers these specific encouragements designed to fight back against that feeling of being overwhelmed, that sense that maybe it's not worth it.
Okay, yeah, let's highlight those, because they feel like they're meant to be practical tools against self-doubt.
First, it tackles that feeling of just getting through the day. The source says, look, you are not just surviving, you are actively building a legacy of faith that will echo in eternity. That reframes everything. Those small, hidden acts suddenly have eternal weight.
Wow, okay. And what about the pain of that hidden secret place work?
For that, it gives this powerful statement. Your labor is not unseen. It's an affirmation that the effort is noticed, just maybe not by everyone around you, but where it counts. It counters that need for constant public validation.
Okay, unseen labor is seen. What else?
Then linking back to the prayerful pillar, there's this assurance. your prayers are not unheard, which validates that quiet internal commitment, affirming it works, even if you don't see the results right away.
And finally, for the words and wisdom part, that slow grind of teaching and guiding.
Yes, for that, there's the critical promise. Your teaching is not forgotten. That's huge reassurance for any parent, teacher, mentor who feels like they're talking to a brick wall sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
And it all culminates in this final image, reinforcing the main idea. The individual is crowned with honor, even when the crown feels invisible. The honor isn't external, it's built internally, in secret. And its real measures that long-term impact, regardless of whether you get applause today.
This has been quite the deep dive into how this one source views lasting influence. We've looked at its definition of a generational legacy, this idea that your fruit speaks for you. And we unpacked those 3 core pillars the source identifies: honor built through sacrifice, wisdom passed through intentional words, and that deep spiritual commitment shown by being present, prayerful, and prophetic.
It really is a pretty comprehensive framework and quite actionable for anyone wanting to build something meaningful.
So this brings up a really interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. Given the source's strong emphasis on letting your fruit speak instead of, chasing applause, how might focusing purely on your internal character and that invisible labor actually change your approach to seeking or maybe rejecting external validation in your work, in your life? If the crown truly is invisible, how do you measure success? That's just a thought to explore as you consider the influences in your own life.
Yeah, that's a really profound point to chew on for the week ahead.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope this analysis helps you think about the legacy you are building right now, today. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today on From Manuscript to Ministry. If today's featured book encouraged, challenged, or inspired you, we invite you to take the next step, purchase a copy, and support the author behind the message. When you invest in their work, you're not just buying a book, you're sowing into good ground and helping advance the kingdom of God through faith-filled storytelling. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs it. Your support helps these powerful voices reach even further. Until next time, keep reading, keep writing, keep praying, and keep walking boldly in your calling. God is still turning manuscripts into ministries.